Hello viewers, and welcome to Exploring Cinema with Brian Meadows. I, of course, am Brian. To the new viewers, welcome. Thank you so much for checking out my channel. And for those of you who are returning, thank you so much for your continued support, and welcome back. Alright, now that we have the formalities out of the way, let's get on to the review. Today's review is on the most recent addition to the MCU, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The film follows our favorite group of ragtag outlaws for hire as their leader Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, discovers his parentage and tries to find, what is the meaning to his existence? I mean, is he perhaps something new and different, or is he just a regular human? We have each Guardian reprising their role, as well as new Guardians, whether we've never seen them before, or if they're basically reprising their role from the previous film. Chris Pratt reprises his role as Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, the human ex-Ravager. I feel that Pratt actually plays this role better than he did in the first one. He's a much more well-rounded character, having to be a bit more serious considering the fact that he is now seen as a hero, and he has to lead the Guardians and try to make it so that they're not just outlaws, but they can actually be good guys. And for those of you who haven't seen the first Guardians, for those of you who have actually seen the first Guardians, you know that Quill is a bit different from other humans, and the film definitely helps explore why he is, and what hidden abilities or talents he possesses. Zoe Saldana reprises her role as Gamora. Gamora. Thanks for making fun of my speech impediment. Gamora. She reprises her role as Gamora, the alien assassin and daughter to Thanos. She's basically the same as she was in the first film. She doesn't get too much character development, but when she does get a little bit, it feels a bit shoehorned in. And actually, yeah, that's all I have on her.
As Star-Lord.
Thanks.
Sorry, that's who she was in this film. I'm Star-Lord, I gotta be your mom.
Dave Bautista reprises his role as Drax the Destroyer. Bautista has shown that his acting chops are getting better with each performance that he does, and while he is a bit funnier than in the first film, he actually does kind of grow as a person. He sees his fellow Guardians as his new family, so there's a new depth to Drax. I mean, compared to everybody else, he doesn't really get much character development. He basically stays in the same place, but he does get some. Bradley Cooper reprises his role as the voice of Rocket Raccoon, and who knew that he could actually become a more sympathetic and even empathetic character? You definitely get to delve more into who he is and why he does the shit that he does, and you actually see the mask that he puts on for everyone else. You see it just disappear, at least for a total of a couple of minutes throughout the film. Vin Diesel reprises his role as the voice of Groot, only this time, Groot is a baby. Baby Groot is perhaps one of the best characters in this movie. He's so heartbreakingly adorable, and your heart just goes out for him every single time he's on screen. Anytime he did something, my heart followed. Like, he'd wave randomly at people, and I'd be like, I don't know, I've never done that before with any movie character, so I don't know. I'm gonna shut up now and move on. Michael Rooker reprises his role of Yondu the Ravager and Quill's mentor, being more of a main character in Volume 2 than in the first one, and he's even a new Guardian, which I can say because it's not really a spoiler. I remember seeing it mentioned in at least 2 trailers. And Rooker was so good in the first film, but he was absolutely fantastic in Volume 2. I have actually decided that he is my favorite character in the film. First, I guess Mallory guessed that mine was. Who was your favorite character?
Rocket and Mantis. Rocket's always been my favorite, though.
Yeah. Rocket is pretty cool. But because of the character development that he has in the film, he's my favorite for Volume 2. His abilities have also increased in power, and as far as Guardian powers and abilities go, he has my favorite ability, and even she agrees it's the best. Karen Gillan reprises her role as Nebula, another daughter of Thanos and Gamora's sister. Normally, I do like Karen Gillan because I'm a Doctor Who fan, and she was a companion for like, what, 3, 4, 5 years? How long has she been a companion? 3 years? Okay. Sorry, she's not speaking, she's eating. But it seems a bit redundant to say that she gained more depth, which is true. And by redundant, I mean, like, compared to everybody else, because everybody else gets more depth. But to be honest, she was my least favorite of the Guardians. One of the things that I love about the dynamic between all of the Guardians and how they play off each other, Nebula had none of that. Come to think of it, I don't think she had any humorous dialogue throughout the movie. We do get a bit of insight to her and Gamora's life growing up together, but that's really the most that we get out of Nebula, specifically. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing this name right, Pom Clementif? Anyway, she plays a new Guardian called Mantis. She has a very interesting ability. She has, empathic powers, and compared to like a telepath who reads minds, an empath can read emotions when they touch somebody. I have never seen that ability in any kind of story before, so it felt unique and fresh. Sadly though, it's basically a useless talent in the long run. Like, they're able to use it in the film, but like I said, I feel like it's an ability more suited for like a more intimate things, like if she's trying to I don't know, interrogate somebody, seeing if they're lying, or if she wants to influence somebody into thinking, like, I don't know, it's like a Jedi mind trick, but she has to touch them in a way.
That could be extremely funny in the next film, bro, we know.
Okay, if you guys didn't hear her, she said that could be pretty funny in the next film. I know! It could. But regardless, she is a great new character who is socially awkward in a very cute way. Clementif gave a really good performance, and I can't wait to see her in the role again. The legendary Kurt Russell plays Ego, a very powerful being who is also Quill's father. I will not go much into his character, considering the fact that who he is very essential to the plot, and no spoilers. No spoilers whatsoever. However, I will say that Russell gives an outstanding performance in this film. There are also some throwaway villains in this film called the Sovereign. They're gold humanoids who are genetically engineered to be perfect. The entire film, I kept asking myself, what the fuck is their purpose here? They just show up randomly to annoy us. Every time they showed up on screen, even if it was just for a second, I was dreading life. I just wanted the movie, I just wanted those aspects of the movie to be over and done with. I'm not a big fan of genocide in movies, but I wanted murder. I wanted all of them dead. They are so useless to the plot. Literally everything would have happened pretty much the same way without them. There is one scene near the end of the film that gives them a reason, but it feels like it was put in at the very last second, so I kind of hated it, even though it's a scene that a lot of comic book nerds are gonna freak out about. But like I said, I still hated it. And there is actually a shrouded villain in this who is actually a great villain. But I get the fact that they need like an antagonist other than him, because otherwise it wouldn't be as obvious, and it would seem a bit strange not to have an antagonist in this film. But either way, shrouded villain. So why did we have these gold bitches? As for the story, it wasn't as unique as the original, nor was it better. There were certain parts of it that were better, don't get me wrong. Like, the dialogue, just the standard dialogue, no humorous, not even the humorous dialogue, but mainly just standard dialogue was a lot better. There were even, there are certain times where there will be a moment where you feel what the movie wants you to feel, but then somebody basically says how or what I should feel, and it takes me out of the moment, and that is actually something that I hated about the movie. And one could even argue that the humor was actually better in this film. I know I actually laughed a bit harder at some points than I ever did with the first Guardians. But the film was filled with so many cliches that it felt like I had seen most of the film before. And even the emotional parts are done really well. A lot of them were still pretty much cliche. For example, now that the Guardians are friends, and they go on jobs together, and sometimes get paid. That wasn't original. It felt like they were a live-action version of the cast of Cowboy Bebop, or like a new reboot of Serenity. One thing that I did like about the film is that not only is it a focus on Quinn's origin, we also get to know a little bit more about the Guardians, even some of the villains, and because of that, all the main characters feel more fleshed out. James Gunn was actually able to take every character, except maybe Drax. He didn't need too much more to him, and he didn't get it. Maybe he didn't need it, I don't know. But Gunn took each character and determined what in their past turned them into who they are today. A quick aside, one thing that I loved about this film that I actually felt was way improved over the first was the opening credits scene. Now, for everybody who's seen the first Guardians, you already know it's just Star-Lord going into a rune and he just puts on his Walkman and he starts dancing to Come and Get Your Love by Redbone, which, by the way, I fucking love that song. I grew up with that because my dad would not stop playing it for a while. But anyway, in the opening credits scene for Volume 2, the Guardians are performing a job, and the shit that happens during is just a must-see, especially, like, the way that it was shot and the way that it was presented. I loved it. It was funny, it was beautiful, it was good. The film is also written in a way that it's not more world-building or more action than the first one, but rather it's a bigger story because of what is explored with each character. That being said, the story in the first was still slightly better. The pacing in the first hour of this film is a little choppy, and for me, it wasn't... It was especially so because of the gold bitches showing up on screen randomly. For you cinema tech nerds out there, Volume 2 was actually the very first feature film to be shot with an 8K resolution camera, which, for those of you who don't know, 8K is the current and highest ultra high definition resolution out there for cinema, and damn does it look good. The visual effects have also improved, taking a lot of techniques that they learned from Doctor Strange and making it their own. Just the planet that Ego lives on is considered the biggest visual effect ever created, and do I believe it? Actually, yeah, you actually have to see it to believe it yourself. But, holy shit. And now, for the music. This is the part that everybody's been looking forward to, because just the soundtrack was so synonymous with the first one. But I'm gonna start with the score. I actually think Tyler Bates composed a much better score compared to the first one. However, I think the reason why I enjoyed it more was because the same could not be said for the soundtrack. While I love all of the music on the soundtrack, I mean, I knew every single song. I've heard it at least I've heard each one at least 100, maybe 1,000 times because I grew up with that kind of music. But like I said, while I love the music on the soundtrack, it didn't go with what was going on in the film like it did with the first film. To recap, while Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a really good film, the problems that I had with the first were fixed and improved, and most of the problems that I loved about the original Guardians of the Galaxy were either not as good or just on par. Also, to break off for a second, you guys need to know that there are 5 mid and after credit scenes, so just please don't leave before they actually happen. And if you see anyone leave during the credits, I really encourage you to call them out, because I think... I'm not saying it because I'm pissed off that people leave due to the fact that I'm a huge fanboy. I'm always pissed off because there are filmmakers who take time out of their schedules to create those scenes, and sometimes it's not even the same crew as the film, so they tend to get like new a different crew, like, especially if it's for, if it's in reference to another movie that's coming down the line. Like, for instance, in Winter Soldier, the after credits scene in that one was shot by Joss Whedon because it was tied to Avengers. He had to take time out of his schedule to actually make it. So please give the crew the recognition that they deserve by just waiting through the credits. And hell, any Disney movie is well known for their credits these days. I mean, look at things like Beauty and the Beast and a few of the most recent Marvel movies. They do something with the credits to keep you in there, and actually the credits for Guardians Volume 2 was the best that I've seen in any MCU film. But like I said, give the crew the recognition that they deserve by just waiting through the credits. Please and thank you. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me ramble on and on. I must ask you guys, though, what did you think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? Did you love it, hate it, indifferent, haven't seen it, etc., etc., blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I want to know your thoughts. I welcome new perspectives. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon channel, which I will have the link for down in the description below. And you can donate as much as $1 per month to help support the channel. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel for the new reviews and content. There's always more to come. Anyway, guys, have a good day, everyone, and may the Force be with you, always.